Most people who think seriously about UAPs assume that the government probably knows something, but is keeping it vague. Some old radar returns, some unexplained sightings, some footage that could be drones or balloons, or atmospheric phenomena, the kind of thing that is easy to dismiss because the evidence is always just blurry enough. I used to think that was rough life situation. Then in July 2023, a former U.S. intelligence officer placed his hand on a Bible in front of a congressional committee and under penalty of perjury said that the United States government is in possession of non-human craft and non-human biological material. He named programs, he named locations, he named people who had threatened him to keep him quiet. He said what he was about to describe was the most significant disclosure in the history of the United States. And the cameras stayed on, and nobody walked out. If that testimony is true, and he said it under oath knowing legal consequences of lying to Congress, then the question is no longer whether the government knows something. The question is what exactly they know. What is in the recovered material that no public agency will discuss? What did a U.S. Navy admiral discover about a private contractor program that he was denied access to despite running the Defense Intelligence Agency? And why is the official government UFO investigation office unable to get information from other parts of the SAMA government? The files are opening. What they are showing us is extraordinary, and what they are hiding may be more extraordinary still. By the end of this video you will understand the full documented picture of what U.S. government programs have acknowledged gathered, and what they are legally prevented from releasing. You will understand the Wilson-Davis Memo, a document so explosive that the intelligence community spent years denying its existence. You will understand what recovered material analysis has found and why the results of that analysis are among the most highly classified programs in existence. And you will understand exactly why full disclosure will never happen in the way you might hope. Not because there is nothing to disclose, but because what there is to disclose is too significant for any government on Earth to manage safely. Stay with me, because this is the most important story that has never been fully told. Let us start with what ICE officially confirmed because this foundation matters. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution of ICE, known as AARO, was established in 2022 as the official Pentagon body tasked with investigating unidentified aerial phenomena. In 2024, AARO released its first historical record report. This report examined UAP reports from 1945 to the present. The conclusions of this report have been widely misrepresented in the press. The report said AARO found no verifiable evidence of extraterrestrial technology in the cases it reviewed. But read carefully. AARO examined only cases that had been made available to it by the various government departments and agencies it queried. Drive Sean Kirkpatrick, the first director of AARO, testified multiple times that many agencies and programs were unresponsive or obstructionist in response to AARO's request. He specifically testified that there were legacy programs operating under special access restrictions that AARO had been unable to gain full visibility into. He said this under oath. He was the director of the official government UFO investigation office, and he could not get access to all relevant programs. Think about what that means for a moment. The government created an office specifically to investigate this phenomenon, gave it a budget and official mandate, and that office could not get information from other parts of the same government. What Kirkpatrick was describing is a specific name in intelligence community parlance. It is called a Wide Acknowledged Special Access Program, a USAP. These are programs so classified that even their existence cannot be acknowledged to anyone who does not have explicit need to know access, including members of Congress and the Inspector General of the Department of Defense. The Inspector General, the senior official whose entire job is oversight of the defense establishment, cannot be told these programs sexist. David Grusch, who testified before Congress in 2023, was a former National Geospatial Intelligence and Agency representative to the UAP Task Force. He told Congress that when he attempted to investigate these legacy programs in his official capacity, he was threatened, obstructed, and ultimately forced out of his position. He filed a whistleblower complaint with the Inspector General. The Inspector General determined that his complaint was credible and urgent. That determination has been confirmed publicly. In 2019, a document began circulating among UFO researchers. It claimed to be the transcript of a meeting that took place in April 1997. The meeting was between Dr. Eric Davis, a physicist who worked for the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications and Program, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson, who was at the time the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. According to the document, Vice Admiral Wilson had learned of a special access program involving the analysis of non-human craft. He had attempted to gain access to the program. He was denied. He was told by the contractors running the program that he did not have the authority to access it. An admiral who ran the Defense Intelligence Agency was denied access to a private contractor program. Let me say that again. The director of the agency responsible for foreign intelligence gathering for the entire U.S. military was told by private contractors that he was not cleared to see their work. He was told that the program had been going since at least the late 1980s. That progress was being made but slowly. That the materials being analyzed did not correspond to any known human manufacturing process. Dr. Eric Davis confirmed in later interviews that the document was accurate. Vice Admiral Wilson did not confirm it publicly but did not deny it. His intermediaries told journalists he declined to comment. The materials described in the Wilson-Davis Memo were not described as obviously alien in appearance. They were described as anomalous in very specific technical ways. The metallurgical structure of certain samples showed isotopic ratios not found in natural terrestrial materials, not different from average natural materials, have a range of isotopic compositions depending on geological origin. These materials fell completely outside that entire range. The mechanical properties of certain materials changed under conditions that should not cause them to change. One description referenced a material that appeared to change its electromagnetic transparency in response to the electromagnetic field of nearby equipment, not a surface coating, not a thin film. The bulk material itself appeared to respond to electromagnetic stimulus. This is not a property of any known engineered or natural material. Researchers working with these samples described a specific challenge. They could observe the effects. They could document the anomalies. But they could not build a theoretical framework that explained what was happening. Because the physical principles required to explain the behavior they observed do not exist in any publicly known branch of physics. This is the thing that most coverage of this topic misses. The mystery is not just that the objects were unusual. The mystery is that serious physicists with decades of experience and complete freedom to use the most advanced analytical tools available looked at these materials for years. and could not explain them. In 2017, when the New York Times broke the story of the ATIP program, a set of research reports commissioned by ATIP were eventually disclosed. These reports tell us something important about what the program believed it was dealing with. The ATIP did not commission reports on drone technology. It did not commission reports on free military aircraft. It commissioned reports on warp drive physics, on negative energy density, and its potential for space-time manipulation, on traversable wormholes, on high-energy laser systems capable of generating plasma screens, on dark energy and its relationship to propulsion, on the effects of high electromagnetic fields on human biology, on the medical implications of exposure to advanced unknown technology. That last category is particularly significant because it implies that ATIP investigators had encountered or were preparing to encounter situations where human beings had been exposed to technology that affected them physically. This was not theoretical research preparation. This was a response to something that had already happened. Declassified documents show that the ATIP program investigated more than 150 reports of UAP encounters involving U.S. military personnel. Many of those reports included descriptions of physiological effects on the pilots or witnesses, skin burns in the absence of any conventional heat source, neurological symptoms including temporary paralysis, loss of consciousness, and persistent cognitive disturbances lasting weeks after the encounter. In some cases, instrument anomaly so severe that aircraft had to be withdrawn from service for diagnostic maintenance. These effects are not consistent with any conventional aircraft technology known to exist. They are consistent with exposure to intense electromagnetic fields of a kind that human engineering has not produced. The fact that the ATIP commissioned research specifically on the biological effects of UAP encounters tells us that the program was not simply tracking objects. It was dealing with a phenomenon that was interacting with human beings. And that interaction was leaving marks. In 2004, the USS Nimitz carrier strike group was operating off the coast of San Diego. Two F-18 pilots, Commander David Fravor and Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, were sent to investigate anomalous radar returns that the ship's advanced SPY-1 radar had been tracking for days. The objects were appearing at altitudes above 80,000 feet, then descending to near ocean surface level, then disappearing from radar, then reappearing at a completely different location. When Fravor and Dietrich arrived at the location, they saw a white object approximately 40 feet long, shaped like a tic-tac. No wings, no rotors, no exhaust, no visible propulsion system. The object mirrored Fravor's maneuvers. When Fravor attempted to close on it, the object accelerated to a position 60 miles away in under a second. This was confirmed on radar by multiple operators on multiple ships. The encounter was witnessed by multiple pilots and multiple radar operators. It was not a hallucination. It was not instrument malfunction. It was logged. It was investigated entry. The footage captured by the F-18 Synfred targeting system was eventually confirmed as genuine by the Pentagon in 2020. Commander Fravor has testified before Congress. He has said he has never seen anything in his 18 years of flying that came close to what that object did. He said it did not come from any country on Earth that he knows of. Ryan Graves, who was an F-18 pilot with the VFA-11 Red Ripper Squadron, has testified that UAP encounters in restricted airspace off the East Coast were happening not occasionally, but daily. His squadron reported them through official channels repeatedly. The reports were filed. They were not investigated. The pilots were informally advised that continuing to make reports could affect their career trajectory. Graves estimated that the objects and his squadron observed would have had to withstand 700 to 800 grams forces to make the maneuvers they were making. No human being can survive more than about 9G. No conventional aircraft can survive more than about 16G. 700G forces represents a level of engineering so far beyond anything we know that the gap is not a difference in degree. It is a difference in kind. A former F-18 weapons systems officer who participated in the post-Nimitz investigation derib reviewing radar data showing objects from a stationary position to hypersonic speeds in fractions of a second. He described watching objects descend from 80,000 feet to sea level in less than a second. He said the data was real and that it was inexplicable within any framework of human technology that he was aware of. He said this after 26 years of experience in naval aviation. I want to explain something that most UFO coverage gets wrong. The assumption is that if the government knows something about non-human craft, the reason they are withholding it is to prevent panic or to protect national security in a conventional sense. Those are real considerations, but they are not the primary reason. The primary reason is more specific and more significant. If the United States government acknowledges possession of non-human craft and material and announces it publicly, three things happen immediately and simultaneously. First, every other government on Earth demands to see the evidence. This creates a geopolitical crisis of unprecedented scale. Sharing the evidence means potentially sharing the technology. Not sharing it means every other nation concludes the U.S. has a technological monopoly of incalculable military value. Both outcomes are destabilizing. Second, the legal and theological form of human civilization faces a rupture is not prepared for. Every legal system on Earth is premised on human beings as the only technological agents. Every major religion has a framework for humanity's relationship with creation. Both of those frameworks break simultaneously if the announcement is not managed with extraordinary care over a very long period of time. The evidence suggests that the gradual management of that process is exactly what has been happening since at least the 1940s. A slow-managed seepage of information. Congressional hearings, declassified footage, whistleblower protections, gradually normalized each language, step slightly from ahead of where public consciousness was the previous year. Third, and most significantly, if the propulsion technology in recovered craft is real and is ever understood, it rewrites entire global energy economy. The entity that controls propellant-free energy and propulsion controls transportation. It controls access to space. It controls access to their sources of the solar system, which are so vast they make Earth's entire economic output look like a rounding error. The geopolitical implications of even one nation developing that technology before others are so extreme that every major government on Earth has a strong incentive to ensure that information about progress toward that technology is tightly controlled. This is not a conspiracy in the paranoid sense. It is rational strategic behavior by powerful actors whose interests align around a single conclusion. The public does not get to know until the strategic situation allows them to know. And the strategic situation may not allow it for a very long time. Here's what we know with certainty. The Pentagon has confirmed that objects performing maneuvers no known human aircraft can perform are operating in restricted military airspace. Multiple credentialed military pilots have testified under oath that they encountered these objects and that the encounters were real. A former Pentagon intelligence figure has testified under oath that the U.S. government possesses non-human craft and biological material The Inspector General of the Department of Defense has determined that these claims are credible and urgent. A document describing a meeting where the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency was denied access to a private contractor program studying non-human materials has been authenticated by one of its participants. The director of the Officialgewöhnt UAP Investigation Office has testified that legacy classified programs he could not access were operating in this domain. And the pace at which this information is becoming public is accelerating. The number of credentialed people willing to go on the record is increasing. The political pressure on the institutions maintaining the secrecy is reaching levels that those institutions may not be able to sustain indefinitely. Something is coming. The question is not whether. The question is how much they will tell you when it does. And based on everything we know about how this information has been managed for 80 years, the answer is probably not enough. The Nimitz encounter in 2004 was not an isolated incident. In 2014 and 2015, pilots from the USS Theodore Roosevelt Career Strike Group off the east coast of the United States began reporting encounters with UAP in restricted military airspace. These encounters happened rapidly, not once, not twice, multiple times per week, according to pilot testimony. Ryan Graves, who flew F-18 Super Hornets with the VFA-11 Red Ripper Squadron, has testified in detail about what his unit experienced. The objects were appearing on radar and also being visually observed. They were sitting in restricted military airspace at altitudes from 20,000 to 30,000 feet, sometimes stationary for extended periods, sometimes maneuvering in ways that no known aircraft can maneuver. Graves described one specific incident where a pilot nearly collided with one of the objects. The object was described as a dark gray or black cube inside a translucent sphere, about the size of a large weather balloon, flying without any visible propulsion system at approximately 25,000 feet altitude. The near miss was filed as a safety report. It was not publicly disclosed until Graves testified. 3 pieces of video footage from the Roosevelt encounters were eventually released by the Pentagon in April 2020. FLIR footage known as the gimbal video, FLIR footage known as the Go Fast video, and the Floor 1 video from the earlier Nimitz encounter. The Pentagon confirmed all 3 as genuine footage of unidentified aerial phenomena. The gimbal video is the most analyzed. It shows an object that rotates in a way that appears aerodynamically impossible for any known aircraft. The name comes from a comment made by one of the pilots watching the footage. When the object rotates, he says, "Look at that thing, dude." And another voice responds, "It is rotating." What makes this remarkable is that the rotation is not the motion of the aircraft through the air. It is the object itself rotating, in the absence of any vibrators or thrust mechanisms, under conditions where no non-aerodynamic force would cause that rotation. Analysis of the footage by aerodynamics experts who have consulted for both the military and private aerospace companionship have been unable to identify a prosaic explanation. The rotation is real. It is captured on a calibrated military targeting system, and it has no explanation that fits any known technology. In 2019 and 2020, the USS Omaka Carrier Strike Group in the Pacific documented a series of encounters with spherical objects approximately 6 feet in diameter. The encounters were filmed by ship sensors and by cockpit targeting systems. One video that circulated tenderly before becoming public shows a spherical object flying over the ship at close range, then descending toward the ocean surface. It then disappears beneath the surface. without a splash, without any visible disturbance off water. An object moving at speed from air to water without any of the hydrodynamic shock that would be expected. The behavior was described by analysts as transmedian, meaning the object appeared to transition between air and water as if the two mediums presented no meaningful barrier. No known human aircraft has this capability. No drone technology operates this way. No submarine technology operates this way, and no known physical object can enter water at that speed without creating the kind of disturbance that would be clearly visible on sensor footage. The Omaha encounters have received significantly less public attention than the Nimitz and Roosevelt cases, but the footage is arguably more extraordinary because, unlike the gimbal and FLIR footage, which show objects at distance, the Omaha footage shows a close approach and a direct interaction with the ocean surface. This object did not crash. It transitioned, as if the water was simply a different room. I want to tell you about a specific sequence of events that illustrates why the full picture of what the government knows cannot be extracted through normal investigative analysis. In 2020, the Senate Intelligence Committee added a provision to the Intelligence Authorization Act requiring the UAP task force to produce an unclassified report for Congress. This was the provision that led to the June 2021 preliminary assessment on unidentified aerial phenomena. That report identified 144 UAP incidents from 2000. It was able to explain only one of them. For the other 143, it offered no explanation and acknowledged that the phenomenon remained a challenge for understanding. The report was 9 pages long. 9 pages. For a phenomenon that military pilots have been reporting since at least the 1940s. For a phenomenon that the U.S. government has been spending money to study in classified programs since at least 2007. 9 pages. This disproportion is not accidental. Luis Elizondo, who was the director of AATIP before resigning in 2017, has described in multiple interviews what he encountered when he tried to get the program's findings taken seriously through official channels. He said that when he brought the evidence to the highest levels of the Pentagon, he encountered not skepticism, but a specific form of dismissal. The people at the top knew not everything, but they knew something. And their response to being shown additional evidence was not curiosity or concern. It was management. He described being asked not "what is this" and "what should we do about it?" but "who knows about this and how do we contain the information?" He resigned and went public because he concluded that the official channels were not functioning as channels for discovering truth. They were functioning as channels for controlling what truth reached public awareness. Christopher Mellon, who served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence during the Clinton and Bush administrations, told journalists that the UAP issue had been deliberately kept fragmented across multiple agencies so that no single entity could develop a comprehensive picture. He called it a fragmentation spree. Not intentional cover-up through active deception, but strategic organizational spirit that achieved the same result. The left hand could not know what the right hand knew, because the organizational chart was designed that way. And anyone who tried to connect fragments became a problem to be managed rather than an investigator to be supported. Drive Sean Kirkpatrick, who ran AARO and testified before the Senate, described the practical result of this system. He said he would request records from a program. The program would say the records do not exist. He would get evidence that their cords did exist. The program would say they are too classified for AARO to access. He would get authorization at a higher level. The program would go silent. He was running the Officialgewert UAP investigation office, and other parts of the Samic government were refusing to cooperate with him. What this tells us is not that there is one person or one office running a cover-up. What it tells us is that the system itself has evolved over decades into something that produces the effect of suppression without requiring any single person to be consciously suppressing anything. The bureaucracy protects the secret, not because anyone ordered it to, but because the secret has become as structurally embedded in how the bureaucracy functions. Beyond the video footage and Thepelo testimony, there is a third category of evidence that receives the least coverage: physical materials. The Wilson-Davis Memo described anomalous materials in the possession of private defense contractors, materials with isotopic ratios outside the range of anything produced by natural or known industrial processes, materials with mechanical properties that changed under conditions where they should not change. These descriptions were not unequivocal. The Wilson-Davis document drive how Puthoff, a physicist who worked on both the CIA's remote viewing research program and later on a peer-related analysis, has described in interviews examining material samples that were characterized as anomalous in origin. He described isotopic analysis revealing element that could not have been produced at any stellar nucleosynthesis pathway known to science. In normal matter, the ratio of isotopes in any given element corresponds to the standard distribution produced by the kinds of nuclear reactions that happen inside stars. These samples did not. The ratios were wrong in ways that implied either a different origin point, a star with very different nuclear physics, or an industrial manufacturing process capable of deliberately engineering isotopic composition. The second possibility, engineered isotopic ratios, is something no human manufacturing process currently achieves at scale. It would require isotope separation technology operating at a level orders of magnitude beyond what exists in any public click-down facility. In 2019, Elizondo confirmed in an interview that physical material analysis was a component of the ATIP program's work. He did not describe the findings in detail, but he confirmed the analysis had occurred. And he confirmed that the findings from that analysis were among the most classified elements of the entire program. Dr. Jacques Vallée, a computer scientist and astronomer who has been studying UAPs since the 1960s, published a peer-reviewed paper in 2021 analyzing the composition of a physical sample associated with a historical UAP incident. His analysis found that the isotopic ratio of magnesium in the sample was significantly anomalous. The magnesium-26 to magnesium-24 ratio differed from the terrestrial standard in a way that was statistically outside the natural range. His paper was published in the journal Progress in Aerospace Sciences, not a fringe publication, a mainstream aerospace journal. The paper attracted significant attention and equally significant attempts to dispute it, but the data in the paper is what data is. And it represents the kind of physical evidence that, if it holds up under further analysis, would be the most direct proof of an terrestrial manufacturer ever published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal.